Hello and welcome to the Avrum Rosensweig Show.
Welcome to one of the internet's best podcasts, where we dive deep into the lives of the extraordinary and fascinating people who leave an indelible mark on our world. Join us as we explore their captivating stories, remarkable achievements, and unique perspectives that shape history and inspire generations. Get ready to embark on a journey through the lives of inspiring people unlike any other.
Hello, folks, and welcome to the show. My name is indeed Avrum Rosensweig. Welcome to a very, very special and a deeply personal episode. Today's conversation, it's not about theory. It's not about abstract belief. It's about belonging. It's about courage and the quiet, stubborn pull of a soul toward truth. Today, we are sitting with three people, each of whom has chosen Judaism. Not because it was easy, not because it was fashionable or convenient, but because it felt unavoidable, because something inside them recognized home. Conversion is not just a change of religion. It's a change of identity, a rerouting of the soul. It means choosing a people, a history, a destiny. And in today's world, it also means choosing a path that often comes with misunderstanding, that often comes with loss and real social cost. And yet, here they are. Chris Wood's journey, or we'll call him Chaim, began not in a synagogue, but in a hair salon in Toronto. Raised without Jewish community, he encountered Judaism first through people, then through Shabbat tables, family warmth, humor, ritual, and a deep sense of togetherness. He had been missing his entire life. What began as cultural connection slowly became something far deeper, a spiritual awakening, a recognition that Judaism was not just something he admired, it was something his soul had been waiting for. For Chris, October 7th and the wave of anti-Semitism that followed it did not push him away. It clarified everything. When someone he loved turned on the Jewish people and on him, Chris saw in real time how ancient hatred still operates. Instead of retreating, he stepped forward. He chose to wear his Magen David. He chose to stand publicly with the Jewish people, and ultimately chose to formally join the destiny he already felt part of. Caleb Schrader, we will call him Bitzalel, came through trauma to Judaism, caregiving, and the deep spiritual exhaustion that comes from witnessing suffering and death. As a nurse, Bitzalel watched people break physically and emotionally, and in that pain, he began to question everything. Christianity no longer held the answers. Meaning itself began to collapse. Torah did not come to Bitzalel as an escape. It came as a rebuilding. Through conversations with rabbis, deep Torah study, and raw spiritual honesty, Judaism gave him back his faith, not just in God, but in humanity and in himself. For Bitzalel, Judaism became a way to hold suffering without losing purpose, a way to stand inside pain without surrendering to it. And Shifra's journey carries the weight of history, memory, and a soul that always seemed to know where it belonged, even before her mind did. Raised in evangelical Christianity, Shifra reached a breaking point when she could no longer accept a theology that condemned good people simply for belief. When hell stopped making sense, Jesus stopped being the center, but God did not disappear for her. What followed was not a rejection of faith, but a return to something older, deeper, and much more honest for her. From a lifelong pull towards Holocaust history to a visceral moment at the U.S. Holocaust Memorial Museum, where she felt without explanation, my people, Judaism has been calling long before she had words for it. Today, Shifra lives that return fully, hosting a Holocaust history podcast, building Jewish businesses, and quite literally stitching Jewish life into the world, challah covers, ritual, memory, and beauty. 3 different lives, 3 different paths, one shared truth. Judaism was not something they found. Judaism is something that found them. Thanks for joining us, folks. Now we can go. That was a long intro, wasn't it? But a good one. How are you guys?
Good. Thank you.
Great to have you. Great to have you. So let me give a context to this panel here. I know all of you in different ways. Bitzalel and Shifra, I've actually interviewed both of you. Bitzalel a couple times, actually. And Chaim I met through a conversion class, one of which I do here locally in Toronto. And I have always been mesmerized by individuals who choose to become Jewish. And part of that is the obvious. We who were born Jewish know that it's not a proverbial walk through the park, especially nowadays where anti Semitism is so incredibly rife. We suffer a lot. So the idea that an individual would take a look at Judaism and say, that's who I am, or that's who I to be, for many of us, that's very difficult to understand. So let's start with that question. Shifra, how is it that you decided to be a member of a people that's really the most hated in the entire world? What was the decision making there?
It's not a decision. And I'll tell you, I actually got into an argument during my Beit Din when I was called a Jew by choice by one of the rabbis on the panel. And I looked at them and I said, don't call me that. I'm not a Jew by choice. I'm a Jew. What I'm choosing is to take on the mitzvot. What I'm choosing is to stop fighting it. I'm choosing to come home to my people, come home to Hashem, and to take on the responsibilities and to take on the target on my back as well. For me, it was less of it was a calling back home. It wasn't a calling to, take on. It was, this is where I belong. It's the only thing that ever made sense. Everything else was swimming upstream. So the Jew by choice thing, or choosing to be Jewish, I take issue with that for me personally, because it's never been a choice. The choice has been taking on the mitzvot and putting the target on my back along with my people, but it's never been a choice per se, if that makes sense.
When were you conscious? When were you aware of the fact that you were a Jew? When did that come along?
When I walked into a synagogue for the first time for an initial meeting, just to understand what some of the basics were, after I'd done years worth of unraveling from Christianity and finally reading all the books, including Judaism for Dummies, which is embarrassing. It's still sitting on my shelf. That was my first introduction to Judaism, really, and in terms of what the beliefs were. And so finally I walked into a synagogue just to ask some questions, and it was like my whole body just exhaled. My whole spirit exhaled, and it just felt like home.
How old were you?
I was 33, 32.
Right.
Yeah.
And Bezalel, your story is a little bit different than Shifra's, although you both live south of us in the United States of America. Perhaps soon we'll be joining you, the way it looks. Although I'll be honest with you, I hope not. Bezalel, you're a nurse.
Yeah.
And you've done a lot of work in intensive care, in trauma. And we don't know a lot about nursing, but one thing that you made me aware of in a big way was the trauma that nurses go through.
Mm-hmm.
What was the connection for you between that trauma that you saw on a daily basis, people falling apart, people dying, right? And you having to deal with that, knowing, okay, it's 9:00, I'm going into work, and you don't have to make axes, or you don't have to make clothing, but you have to try to save lives. And then somehow that translated into converting to become a Jew. How did that formula work?
Well, I mean, I would say it was a complete breakdown. The structures of life broke down. Meaning lost its place in my life. Part of a nurse's schedule is it's very chaotic. It's always rotating and it's always changing and very unstable. And so when I came to Judaism, fixing myself on Shabbos. Shabbat was everything. It is the grounding point of my life. And once I started taking on Shabbos, it was I at this point I don't know how people survive without it. Like it's so incredible. I mean, the reset. I mean, Dennis Prager says that the punishment for not keeping Shabbos is that you don't get to keep Shabbos. that is the punishment.
That's good.
Yeah. It's a beautiful thing. I mean, it's very true.
My mother of blessed memory used to say, I wish Shabbos was every day of the week.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So you came to this point in your life where things were what you qualify as rock bottom,
Mm-hmm.
right? And for some reason, through your eyes, through your beautiful eyes, you started to be cognizant of something which was called Judaism, and you would have chats with rabbis. You struck up relationships with them, right? What
Well,
yes, tell us.
well, it was more at rock bottom. I have to figure this God thing out. Like, kind of like Shifra. God never left my mind, but Christianity stopped having the answers, and that left me without really a tether to God. You know, in the hospitals, when you're standing over someone who's dying and they're talking to you, and you both know that they're dying, God is 100% in that place, and in your mind in those moments. You know, I remember this one gentleman. He had such a beautiful death, and we were talking. He was a very soft, gentle, kind person, just in his essence. And I was standing, you know, I was with him all night long, and I was standing there watching the monitor as his heart stopped. And I looked over at him after his heart stopped beating, and I got right up to his face, and I was just looking at him, you know, where you know, an hour previous he was fully speaking to me and conversing about his death. And I just leaned over and I said, "Where did you go, bro?
Yeah, right.
Where did you go?" I just whispered it, like, "Where did you go?"
Yes.
Like, I mean, that is such a spiritual moment to me. And I had no box to put it in. I had no framework. So when I decided that I had to figure God out, I was like, I'm starting at the beginning of the book, and I'm going to make my way through. And I really dialed in on Shabbat. It's the seventh day, and you know, it is an eternal covenant. It will never, ever, ever, ever go away. It says it over and over and over. And I just latched onto that, and I've been holding on for almost 11 years now.
Thank you for that. Thank you.
Yeah.
I've had similar experiences where I've seen a few dead bodies myself, and I also wonder the same thing. Where the heck are you? Where did you go? Right? Yeah.
It's amazing. It's an amazing honor to be able to be in that place. There are other deaths that I could share that are horrible and traumatic.
Yes.
And, you know, like my whole collective experience of death. I don't think there's any way that a person can die that I haven't participated in.
Yeah, it's fascinating.
That I've bared witness and had, you know, a front row seat to.
Chaim, for Jews, more important than the hospital is the hair salon. Now, it's interesting that's where you work, at a hair salon, and you have a lot of Jewish clientele. So you've been exposed to Jewish people for a number of years. Tell us the genesis of your entry through the Jewish door, if you will.
It definitely is. It is a genesis, and it's not kind of like it's a multi-year, multifaceted thing. And I can definitely identify with both of these other amazing converts in parts of their story, particularly with death and wondering, you know, where you go, and figuring out God, and God never leaving your mind. But, you know, other avenues of religion stopped having the answer. I was born Anglican. I was baptized Anglican, and my mother is Catholic. We were never the type of household that would go to church like regularly, but she was very much a devout Catholic, and, you know, I had to say my prayers each night, and the way she taught me the Bible was from a very specific lens, through her lens that she was taught it. And looking back as a young child, I always had an idea and a belief in God, and I knew that there was something bigger than me and than us, and I saw God in everything. I remember looking at trees, and I would see God in that, and like the sky, and just learning about, you know, the Big Bang and evolution. It just all seemed so holy to me. But when, you know, I was taught these stories through this lens from my mother, it was in a way where, you know, you could never question anything, and you had to blindly believe. And as I got older, you know, and I came more into who I am as a man, as an adult, particularly with sexuality, being a gay man, but also knowing that I was born just the way that I am, and that I never woke up and chose to be, who I am. And reading some of these stories, the way that they were taught to me in the Bible, I didn't know how to come to terms with these things, because it was like this one sentence is saying that I'm wrong and that I'm destined for this maybe life of punishment and pain. But at the same time, I knew in my heart of hearts that I was a good person and that I am one of God's children, and I was put on this earth just the way that I am. So, as I kind of moved to the city, because I had never really been exposed to any Jewish culture, any Jewish people growing up. I came from a relatively small town, and always having that yearning for that connection to God. Once I started working in the hair industry and happened to have more clients that were Jewish, being invited into their households through doing weddings, bar and bat mitzvahs, I was just so moved by the sense of family and community and just looking out for each other. And that's something that was always very foreign to me. My family is everyone does their own things in their own little pockets, and we never really got together. And that was always something that I craved. So, as the years went by, I started really, really developing such a high admiration and appreciation for the customs and the community, and particularly Shabbat, just that day of reset where you get to be with your family and you're not just connected to the hustle and bustle of the world all the time. And I thought that was fascinating. I'd never understood that concept before. And so as the years progressed, I've always been a naturally curious person, and I started doing more research on what is Judaism, what are tenets of Judaism, particularly more Reform Judaism. And it was just like a light bulb went off. It kind of like what Schiffer was saying, it didn't ever feel like I made a choice. It got to the point where it was just something that I must do. I don't feel like I arrived at a place where I'm like, okay, well, this is like this track and this is this track. It's like, well, no, this is just, it was shown to me, through some of my self research before I started my conversion program. I learned, about in Kabbalah, how they kind of view converts, and they can view that a Jewish soul can be born into a Gentile family, and that it's almost like a test, and the conversion is that soul finding its way back home. And I remember learning that, and that really, really spoke to me, because I always felt a little different in my family. And I don't know if it was because I was gay, but the way I would question the stories, and my mom would be like, well, no, you're not supposed to question it. That's what the story is. And just, I don't know, it was like my life flashed before my eyes up until the moment where I learned that. And I just said, yes, I think I've always been a Jew. It's just, I was put on this earth, maybe with the upbringing that I had, as some type of test. And I really did feel this pulling that it's something that I must do. I need to do.
The fact of the matter is, you talk about converting through Reform Judaism. What I find compelling through my research is that 54% of converts actually come through Reform Judaism, through conservative Judaism, 27%, and through Orthodox Judaism, 8 to 10%. Now, B'Tzalel, you actually converted through Orthodoxy, Shifra and Chaim through Reform Judaism, correct? Conservative, and then Chaim is Reform, right?
So one of each.
One of each. There you go. B'Tzalel, one of the things that is on my mind is the idea that you came down a certain road, and we'll call that road Jewishness. But there was a road perhaps parallel to it, which was a Christian road, which was a family road, which was a road that was taken by all the people whom you grew up with. When you diverged, when you made that right-hand turn onto the Jewish road, did it come down to giving up some relationships or sidestepping a few? How does a person converting deal with the life that they grew up with, which is so different?
Well, I think, my family, I have one person in my family that was very upset by it. The rest, I would say, the resistance that I met pushed me on my own unique path. And what I mean by that is, early on, you learn that you're supposed to do this thing, and so you try to take that on, and I did try to take on too much, and it was hurting relationships, and so that resistance caused me to reevaluate how I was approaching my Judaism, and first to admit, I'm an idealist through and through, and it's burned me in the past. And so evaluating that aspect of my personality, and seeing the uncomfortableness with it, with the people around me taking on so much so quickly, my reevaluation led me to approach it from a much more slow and methodical perspective. I want this thing to last. And so I backed off on the stringencies, and I just said, I'm going to add one thing at a time, and I'm going to do this. That's how I'm going to do this whole thing. I'm going to build my life this way, which is why Betzalel makes sense. I built my life. But the other aspect of that was that this is my path and no one else's, and I couldn't in my mind justify destroying the world that I was coming from to build a new world. That didn't make any sense to me. Destroying relationships and destroying my history seemed like almost like there's a cognitive dissociation with approaching it that way. That if I integrate this and I change who I am and let the world acclimate around me versus just shunning everything from my past, then I become a more whole person. And it's better to be healthy. Reb Adam Yitzchak says it's healthy before holy. And I grabbed a hold of that idea. Yeah.
We should add, by the way, you referenced the name Betzalel. When one reads their studies of the Torah, there is this venue where God dwells called the Mishkan, or the tabernacle, and the assistant craftsperson who was building the Mishkan to God, really assistant to God, was Betzalel. He was the creative individual found within the Torah, and he knew every aspect of building that tabernacle, what had to do with gold and silver, precious metals and woods, and the like. And similarly, you also are, I call you a woodsman or a someone who is, you're pretty advanced when it comes to woodworking. So we'll touch on that a little bit later. Shifra, you're really a fascinating human being. You are.
Thank you.
You are full of zest. When I saw you online, you now have a podcast, and we will reference that later. But when I saw you online fighting all these anti-Semites and doing it so well, my gosh, your dukes weren't up, but verbally you were able to put people in place, and you never, ever back down. Like, you're a very tenacious human being. So I'm guessing that you probably come from a family. You're from Minneapolis. This is a hotbed of activism and federal operations right now. But you come from that background, which is, I'm likely, very much involved and very forthright when it comes to what they believe in. Your family, Christianity was a huge deal in your family. Yet today, and tell me if I'm correct, in terms of your relationship, let's say with your father, you're very close.
Yeah.
And your father doesn't call you Shifra; he calls you by your Christian name, right?
Yeah. My family is the only people now who call me by my legal name, which is Krista, which I don't go by anymore socially or professionally. It's just uncomfortable walking into Jewish spaces and explaining that my name is spelled like Christ with an A at the end. It's just awkward. Not my thing anymore. But my family still calls me Krista because that's how they know me. That's how they've known me since I was, since I popped out of the womb. And so I think something that Betzalel commented on before about family and the whole concept of Shalom Bites means the world to me. And so if my family's gonna be more comfortable calling me Krista, that's fine with me. That's fine. Every once in a while, I get a little confused when they say the name. That I'm like, oh wait, that's me. But it doesn't bother me at all. My family's been very supportive. I say this in the nicest way possible. They could care less what religion I am as long as I'm not, worshiping the devil, I guess. They don't really care. They want me to be happy. They want me to be whole. They feel like I'm doing well in the world, and that's all that matters. They care about my health and my safety and all that. And so everything beyond that is, we're proud of you for finding your way.
So Shifra, did you leave anything behind when you converted?
Besides my entire lifestyle.
Besides that, yes.
My relationships didn't really suffer. They changed a little bit in terms of, holiday observance and things like that. It's a little bit more awkward around my family, but especially like Christmas and things like that. But nothing really left behind other than what impacted just me, like how I eat, what foods I can eat, like how I pray, things like that, and learning a new language. But I don't feel like I suffered any major loss.
Any anti-Semites in your family or past friends?
Actually, you know what? Now that you mention it, and it's been so long since those friends have left, I guess, since it's been over 2 years since October 7th. But when October 7th happened, I think in those early weeks, that's when friends started to fall off. But it feels like so long ago that it didn't even come to my mind to mention when you asked me if I lost anything, because in the process I've gained so many more Jewish friends and people who just support Israel in general. So there was a loss there, but once you anchor into community and into especially Jewish community, it makes up for it.
Chaim, there's a lot said in the Torah about how Jews are supposed to treat converts. As an example, the Haftam et Hager, ki garim hayitem be'eretz Mitzrayim. The Torah says in Deuteronomy, you shall love the convert, for you were strangers in the land of Egypt. Similarly, in Shemot, v'ger lo toneh, you shall not oppress or mistreat a convert, for you were strangers in the land of Egypt. There are a number of different psukim. There are a number of different lines in the Torah where this is pointed out to the Jew, the person who was born Jewish. You're not really supposed to remind a convert about their past. So to me, this was always fascinating, but I wondered why God put so much emphasis on treating the convert well. So as someone who in the springtime will go to the mikvah and go through the process that you need to in order to be formally a Jew, tell me in your mind, why does God put so much emphasis on taking care of the convert, of being kind to the convert?
Well, I think it's just like kind of being adopted into a big family. And I mean, let's say you are a child being adopted, everything feels foreign to you. You feel quite literally like a fish out of water. They might be of a different culture. They might eat different foods than you. Like they might have different routines. And, there is a big sense of not imposter syndrome. I don't like to use that phrase, but you're coming into this ancient culture, and it's so rich, and it's like you want to know everything. And I remember some of the early lessons and early days. I was very nervous. I just felt like maybe I didn't belong there, and maybe there is that emphasis on taking care of the convert to make them feel comfortable, because especially if they're coming to you by choice, like they're interested in learning more, and I just don't, because the Jewish culture is so based on community. It makes sense that they would, take them in with open arms and make them feel safe, and just, create a sense of a healthy space for learning.
It's a great answer. Thank you. Was there any really funny mistakes that you made in a Jewish environment, trying to do your best?
I wouldn't say. I'm a pretty conservative person sometimes, especially when I'm in a place that I'm not familiar with. So I wouldn't say so yet, but like the first time we had to turn towards Israel, I had no idea what was happening. So get up really quickly, and I'm just like, okay, I guess we're turning. I would say that, yes, because I was.
That's literally what I thought of too.
Yeah, that's great. By the way, so someone who's born Jewish, on Friday night there's a prayer called Lecha Dodi. It's a very beautiful prayer, and in the very last stanza, everybody turns around to the door, and because I'm so dopey and not concentrating on what's going on in shul sometimes, everybody's turned around, and all of a sudden I look up and they're all facing me. So you should know that we who were born Jewish do similar things. I'm really also very compelled to ask, and I think a lot of people will wonder about this. Some of the most famous converts, one of them for sure was Ruth in the book of Ruth. So if I were meeting Shifra and Shul, and I would ask her about her name, obviously, because it's not a common Jewish name, although it is my eldest sister's middle name. Maybe Ruth would have been a name that I would have thought you would chosen, or Sarah perhaps, but you chose Shifra. Why was that?
Well, my name is Shifra Ruth, so I did go with Shifra Ruth.
Yeah, that's right. Yes.
Shifra was actually recommended to me. It got to the point in my journey where my rabbi was like, I need you to start thinking about names. And that was daunting. And I had a really large class of converts, and everybody was tossing around the same biblical names like of Leah and Rebecca and all this. And I was like, that doesn't sit with me. And I was talking to an Israeli friend at the time. And he was like, you look like a Shifra. And I was like, what is a Shifra? Like, what even is that?
What kind of
right. Did you just cuss at me? What are you talking about? And so I remember going home and Googling it, and it means she improved or to be beautified. And I realized that everything in my life improved from the time that I got home, to Judaism. And then I did take on Ruth as a middle name, if you will. And it wasn't for the purpose of, Ruth was the first convert, which is a very easy response to that. But what I think about with Ruth is that she decided to stay right after her husband died and after Naomi's husband died, knowing the best answer for her would have been to go home back to her own tribe where she would have been protected, she would have been married again, and she would have been fed and everything would have been okay. But she had committed to this family, and she said, no, I'm going to stay with you because I already made a commitment through, for better or worse, if you will, right? Like we say at the altar. And she made that commitment and she stayed, and God rewarded her for that. And the lineage of Mashiach is coming from Ruth because of her commitment. Mm-hmm. And so God rewarded her for staying true to her word. And that's really what made me take on Ruth as a middle name.
Is it an amazing opportunity? Is it fun, or is it highly stressful to have to choose your name?
Stressful in a fun way, though. I mean, it's because it's a big deal. Now I understand how people are when they name a baby. It's a big deal.
It is a big deal. Betzalel, well, how about you? We talked about your affection, your love for woodworking, and we talked about who Betzalel was. I guess it's not a huge leap to figure out why you chose that name.
Yeah. Well, I mean, so that is kind of a superficial layer. I feel like I made it out of the darkness of the dark night of my soul, if you will. I made it out of that, kind of in the shadow of God, and that's what Betzalel means, in the shadow of God. And I felt deeply connected to that when I researched the name. I've known for probably 5 years that was my name. One of my good friends who converted, he chose that as a middle name. And when I looked at it, as soon as he said it, I was like, well, that's my name. Can I have that? And he was like, yeah. So as soon as I heard that, I knew that was my name.
The three of you, I watch each one of you as another is answering a question, and you're all very, very concentrated on what that person has to say. In Canada, my son is a hockey player, so therefore he has a great affinity to many, many Canadians, right? The fact that the three of you are here and that you've all converted or are going through the conversion process, is there a particular affinity that you feel for the other? Is it like, yeah, brother, yeah, sister, I get you? Is there that feeling in the room? Yechaim, let's go to you.
Yeah, I think to learn to be Jewish is to understand community and friendship. And any convert, to me, I not only see them as a Jew, not a Jew by choice, but someone that you might not know them, but there's always that underlying familiarity and like that sense of family, which I think is one really awesome thing about Judaism. Like I could meet someone from Morocco or from Israel, and even though they're a complete stranger to me in one sense, I feel like they're, I've known them forever, and you invite them to a Shabbat table and you're like, yeah, come over to my place. So I think definitely with converts to converts, we know how the journey has been, sometimes a little awkward, sometimes a little uncomfortable. But yeah, it's just that sense of unwavering community.
Schiffer, what are your thoughts on that question?
Yeah, I think the whole process itself, and as far as conversion, I was very well supported throughout the whole process, but ultimately it's a very isolating process because at the end of the day, it's just you and your neshama making this decision for yourself and making the changes. It's you deciding whether you're gonna eat bacon ever again, and when you're standing in your kitchen, that kind of thing. And so when you finally get to be around some other people who went through the same process as you, and there's very, very few of us in the world, comparatively speaking to the rest of the world population, it feels so much less isolating, and it feels like, oh, you get it. Especially when you come from a similar background, you understand the whole process to get there, and it's the camaraderie around it is unlike even the camaraderie that I have with my fellow Jew, the ones who were born into it.
What was it lonely when you went to the mikvah that cold morning in Minnesota, or did you?
It was in Vegas.
I know. I just wanted to be dramatic. I thought that sounded good.
It was a very hot day.
Did you feel surrounded by love or otherwise?
Yeah. And I mean, we've talked about the mikvah before, but to me, it was a very special thing. And I'd love to hear about these two gentlemen's experience with it as well, because I think with me, well, I suppose, Chaim, you still have to go there. But for me, it wasn't so much as like a big deal as other people made it out to be. It's a huge deal because it's an outward expression and it's an acceptance of the Torah, and it's showing my people like I'm finally home and now you can envelop me in fully and all of that, right? But to me, it was a formality. And so it was surrounded by love. My rabbi was there, the rabbi's assistant was there, everybody was there, but it was, okay, now it's done. Check marked, I'm in, because it had felt like I was in already for so long. And now I finally get to say that I am. Now I finally get to put on the Magen David that I've been carrying around with me. It was a formality. That's all. I was already in it. I was already doing it. I was already living it.
Were you baptized?
I was baptized Catholic. Yeah.
How old were you when you were baptized?
An infant, a newborn.
So you don't remember it then. I'm just wondering if there's any.
I also did do, and I forgot about this because honestly, once you get through this whole process and your life changes, there's like a before and an after. So as you're asking me questions, I'm like, oh wait, I did do a water baptism, a full immersion baptism in my 20s.
Okay.
And it feels like a lifetime ago. It doesn't even who is that girl? I don't know.
Yeah, that's another thing that really amazes me. Bezalel, so you go to the mikvah, you literally go underwater, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And there's nothing coming between you and the water. You can't wear a watch, can't wear a ring, correct?
Fingers open.
Right. And your fingers are open. How long are you underwater for?
Not long. Just to be fully submerged.
Do you remember being underwater?
Yeah.
What was that like?
The rabbis were like, okay, you can come up now. I wanted to kind of be in the moment and just sit there for a second. And I remember hearing them through the water, which is a, strange experience. But kind of like Shifra, I didn't want to have some profound spiritual experience with mikvah. To me, it was, again, a formality. I have already become this person. It kind of goes back to my previous answer about building it very slowly and methodically over a very, very long course of time, because I wanted it to last. And so to me, as I've thought about mikvah in the past, going towards it, I really wanted it to just be another Monday where I'm not going through some radical transformation. The radical transformation took me 10 years. It wasn't this one moment of experience. So yeah, does that answer your question?
Yes, and let's go to Chaim to see if it answers his questions. You're God willing, you'll be going to the mikveh in the springtime.
Yes.
What Shifra and Betzalel have to say here about their mikveh experience, is it enlightening to you? Is it what you've been thinking?
Yeah, I definitely can take a little bit from each one. And to be honest, I've thought about this day so much for so many years. What's it going to be like? Imagining the room and who's going to be there and what's it going to feel like? And admittedly, I'm a romantic, and I always imagine things in my mind. So I think a large portion of me feels or thought that it's going to be this amazing spiritual awakening, and the goosebumps or the cry or whatever may happen. But then as I'm listening to the other two speaking, it really does make sense. It's not that once you do the mikveh that's the only way that you became Jewish.
Yes.
It's everything that led up to that, and that really is just the formality. Because then that's suggesting that you don't feel Jewish at all until you come out of that water for the third time. And that's obviously you feel Jewish because you wouldn't do all this work to get to the point of getting in the water. So
to a neophyte, someone who has not converted to Judaism, although I wish that I could, it sounds so exciting. I think in my mind, and I've told you this, Chaim, at the class, I always thought like, whoa, spiritual fireworks are going off when you go underwater. That's why I asked Batsala, how long were you under there for? What was it like? But I understand your answer, and it's a very beautiful answer, all of you, what you're saying in terms of, I stepped in the mikveh being a Jew already. Now this was just a formality. Chaim, you've referenced the fact that you're also gay, and I'm just wondering, is there any crossroads between your conversion, becoming a Jew, being a Jew, and being a gay man? Any similarities there? Do they intersect somewhere?
What do you like? Can you be more?
I don't know. I was hoping you would enlighten me.
My experience with being a gay man in Judaism has been an insanely positive one, to be honest.
Has it? Okay.
Yeah, I've definitely felt so incredibly welcomed. And actually, as a matter of fact, the first Shabbat service I ever went to at Shul was at Holy Blossom, and it was their gay pride Shabbat service.
Oh, okay.
And it was just, growing up going to church and just kind of how the Bible, at least through Catholicism and Christianity, speak on gayness in general, to be in a place of worship and seeing all these gay men wearing their kippahs and seeing, Israeli pride flags everywhere, and like having, schmoozing after, and seeing like Israeli drag performances all in a synagogue. It was amazing. Like, it was an incredible experience, and I highly recommend it to anyone.
Yet to talk about how the different denominations diverge, as I mentioned before, Batsala converted within an Orthodox construct. So Batsala Chaim is telling us now how excited he is about how welcoming the Reformed community is to the gay community. That probably is not your experience in the Orthodox world, right?
No, it's not.
It's a little bit.
The Rebbe does have a good perspective on it. I can't draw it up right now, but that a yid is a yid, and it's a holy soul.
Schiffer, we had a discussion once about some of the limitations that were about to be imposed upon you, which you did not take too kindly. I think one of them was what we called tzniut, which is modesty. You want to talk to us a bit about that, how you responded to it?
Yeah. And, that's the reason why I chose conservative, is because I felt like it was a place where I would be equal parts challenged and supported, but my neshama and my closeness to Hashem wouldn't be judged based on two primary things that I could boil it down to. One being what I wore, and the other one being who I chose to hug. And so in terms of modesty, I don't feel like I need to cover my elbows to be a proper Jew. I don't feel like I need to restrict myself from hugging my lifelong male platonic friends in order to be considered Jewish, or to, be close to Hashem. And so those are things that I just could not reconcile within the Orthodox movement. They're the things that have kept me from it. That being said, I feel like my personal practice is probably closer to modern Orthodox. And so it's just kind of a weird place to be, to feel like I kind of want to be in that space. But I've also, I've tested that space. I've been about a few times, and I hate to say it this way, but I'm just going to be honest. It's almost like a dog testing if the electrical fence is on, and it is on. And so, I got burned a little bit there, and I just went back to the place where my neshama is recognized, and I'm good there.
So let me ask you the flip side to that question.
Yeah.
What's your favorite halacha? What's your favorite Jewish law?
You asked me this before, and it's changed, and now it's so obvious. And well, no, what you asked me was what my favorite mitzvot was.
Mitzvah.
Actually,
Yes,
my
yes.
favorite mitzvah. And it's so obvious now, looking back and looking at what I do with my life now, and it's zachor. It's the requirement to remember. And
Very
that's all I do with my podcast and with my work. It's like, oh, well, that was so obvious that I didn't even have to sit down and pick it out. I'm living it.
And you do it so incredibly well, I must tell you. You really do. Tell us a little bit about your podcast. Let's pitch it.
You sure? Yeah, I just launched my Holocaust history podcast. It's been in the making for a year. It's called A Small Light. It's based off of the quote by Meep Geese, who now famously helped hide Anne Frank and the others in the annex. And she had a quote that said that even a teenager or a doctor or a child or a lawyer or whoever can turn on a small light in a dark room. And so it's the only podcast that's out there right now, and it's available on all platforms. The first full episode was launched last week. Each episode is a unique Righteous Among the Nations story. And I think it's the only Holocaust history podcast out there that focuses strictly on the stories of the righteous, on why they did what they did, who they are, where did they end up, not just the action of their story, but who was this person, what drove them, what made their ethics different than the people who looked on or, collaborated, if you will.
You are a very powerful person. And I remember a video that you did about going through your grandmother's stuff after she had passed, God bless her soul, and finding Jewish things within her belongings. And sort of a light bulb went off as you explained it, like, wait a second here, maybe there was some Jewishness in my family. Right?
Yeah, I found some jewelry in my late grandmother's things recently. We were kind of divvying some things up to the grandchildren over the holidays since everybody was home, and found some jewelry that had Magen David's on it and had menorahs on it. And I was like, what is this? And then I was talking to my family, and one of my uncles was like, yeah, our great-great-grandmother or something, her maiden name was Moise. And I was like, I've never heard that name before. Can you spell it? And he said, Moise. And I was like, you mean Moshe? Like, what?
Yes.
So a DNA test may be in order.
I hang around with a lot of frum, a lot of religious people. My family's all religious. My chavrutas, the people I learn with, all chavrutas, and they would say, if I were to ask, speak to them about converts, they would say, "Oh, there probably was a Jew in their history somewhere." That's kind of the take of it. But Salal, it says that in halacha, once someone converts, and we alluded to this before, when they convert, that they are 100% Jewish. With the same obligations, the same rights and spiritual standing as someone who was born Jewish. This is taken very seriously. Converts are called to the Torah, counted in a minyan, 10 men in the Orthodox community, which is where you come from, and treated as a full part of the people, not almost Jewish. The reality of the situation is, and I know this because I grew up in the Jewish world, my father was a rabbi, is that for some reason, many people, and I find that often in the Reform and Conservative movement, do not accept converts with a whole heart. Has that been your experience, that there are some people who kind of look at you strangely? Well, what do you mean you're a Jew, or have you not seen that at all?
No, I definitely saw that. The community that I'm in now that I've been in for many years now, I don't get any of that at this point. I mean, most people already were at the point where, most, they all said, as far as we're concerned, you're Jewish. You just have to go through the steps. The previous community that I was a part of, I definitely got that. I had some less than pleasant exchanges with some people. And those also shaped how I approached my Yiddishkeit. Again, wrestling with my idealism and wanting to do it, approach this in a mature and grounded way. Those experiences kind of drove me to more fully realize that this thing that I'm doing is about my relationship with God. I'm going to make people unhappy on the other side. I'm going to make people unhappy on this side. And at the end of the day, this is my journey, and this is my relationship with Hashem. And so, that's the other gift of taking so long is that my sense of identity is fully set.
Is your relationship with Hashem, with God, is it a Jewish God? Is it a Jewish relationship?
I mean, my whole life is Jewish, and the entire context of my idea of God is Jewish. So
God has
I don't even know
changed
how
for
to
you?
answer that. Of course, yes.
Yeah, I was hoping you wouldn't. Has therefore God changed for you as you changed?
Oh yeah. Oh, my idea of God has changed tremendously. I don't kind of like Shifra. I don't have this idea of a God sitting up on his judgment seat, prepared to throw me into a burning pit of hell at every mistake that I make in my life. The idea of, I mean, the mitzvot, like to hook yourself to God, to connect yourself. I know that I don't do it all properly. I like that's one of the great things about this path is that it is a lifelong path of self-development. I'm on this path for my life, and my idea of God is far more merciful than what I was raised with.
Is it okay for others, though, that view of God, the Christian view of God, as far as you're concerned, is it okay for those who are Christian?
What do you mean? Is it,
there are those people who say Judaism is truth, end of story, and if you want to follow God, you need to do the 7 Noahide laws. Other people say, listen, Christianity is another way to God, right?
I mean, that gets into the idea of God. I mean, I think people, at the end of the day, we didn't get to choose who we were born to or what we were born into. Nobody gets that choice. So, I mean, I could have landed in a Hindu house, my experience would have been completely different, and my ideas of God would have been completely different. And we are all on our own journeys, and I think that it is absolute. I mean, it's not even absolutely certain. It's obvious that there are so many people that create beautiful, meaningful lives through other practices aside from Judaism. I mean, that's the other part of this. This is my journey. This is how I connect to God, and
Yes.
how someone else chooses to do that is really none of my business.
Yes.
Like, it was so much of my business when I was a Christian. Everybody has to be saved.
Everybody does. Mhm.
It's annoying, isn't it?
Yeah.
Here, it's like, I'm a Jew. Leave me alone. Go do your thing. Whatever.
Leave me alone. I just want to do my thing. Yeah.
Chaim, on behalf of Jewish people everywhere throughout history, I want to thank you for wearing your Magen David so prominently, so respectfully, so beautifully.
Thank you.
I have to tell you something, that what you are doing, what Shifra has done, and what Batal has done, it means a lot to many of us, because it's lonely being a Jew. It's lonely being a Jew, right? Shifra, you have a Magen David as well, right? Batal, you wear your kippah, right? You wear your kippah? You have your kippah.
Yeah.
I wear mine too for the podcast.
My
But my kol hakavod to you. My question to you, Chaim, is, and if the other two want to think of an answer while we talk about this, is there's let me be real crass and dramatic here, okay? There are a shitload of people out there who hate us. When I say us, I include you. Why? Because we're Jews. Now, when you're going through the process, all of a sudden you start to realize, there might be something about this Jewish soul that's been rumbling in my tummy. Could it be that I'm a Jew, right? And then all of a sudden, one day, that sort of epiphany happens of sorts. As Batal said, it can take 10 years, but it is an epiphany of sorts. and you decide, yeah, I'm a Jew. And now I have to go through the formality. But there you are wearing your Magen David. So firstly, do you wear it outwardly at your work?
I do, yeah.
Has anybody ever responded to it or to you as a Jew? And could you say that you've experienced anti-Semitism? And then finally, the part D to this, and you can answer any piece you want, is was there ever a moment where you said to yourself, October 7th, man, the Holocaust, the Jews in Europe, like, whoa, this is way too much. Well, was there ever a moment like that for you?
No, definitely wasn't a moment where it felt like it was too much. Again, it made me just feel more connected to the people. Like when I was learning these stories, I was feeling almost the pain as if it was happening to someone that was in my family, someone that I knew. And I learned that one of the ideas of Judaism is when we tell these stories, we tell them not as if we're just remembering the past. We tell them as if it's happening currently to us.
Very good.
And I really connected with that. So to answer kind of the multi-layered questions, yes,
7 layers, yeah.
Yeah, I do wear my Magen David outwardly. I wear it to work. I wear it out and about, like all the time. Like I take it off here and there if I swap out like a Chaim necklace. But it reminds me of my connection to God. The one triangle representing man, one triangle representing God. I really love that. But no, I was never afraid to wear it. I happen to live at just by Young and Bloor, and there's a lot of protests that happen there. And I don't tuck it away. I wear it proudly. Sometimes I wish they would ask me a question. I would never come with them from anger, but no, I've even standing amongst these protests, I haven't had anyone personally, yell anything horrible at me. If anything, I get a lot of, wow, thank you for wearing that, or clients saying how beautiful it is.
Yes.
Admittedly, most of my clients are Jewish, but no, I've been very fortunate that I've had nothing but support from wearing it.
Are your clients excited for you by and large?
Yes, they are. And, a lot of my clients, I've got maybe 5 or 6 that I've known for 15, 16, one of them 17 years. So most of my adult life. And I think what has really been amazing for me is, they've been a part of this whole journey. And my questions about Judaism, when I first started learning about it and contemplating conversion, and converts and me in particular, I tend to be hard on myself and just, how Jewish is Jewish enough. And more than a few of these clients have said, Chris, we have seen you as Jewish for so many years already. And for someone that, was born Jewish, all of their family are Jewish, like that is their life and culture. That's the most incredible thing to be told by someone that they see you as a Jew when maybe you don't yourself. Maybe, you haven't learned that perfect prayer. You don't know every single thing that you have decided that you want to know to feel Jewish. They still see you that way.
Can you say ch?
Huh?
Yeah, very good. Can you say it in a word though? Like, can you say a bracha with the ch?
Bracha? Chutzpah?
Like, what's the blessing on bread? Make the blessing on bread. Let's hear.
The blessing on bread. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam chamotzi lechem min haaretz.
Pretty close, man. Pretty close. Very good.
Getting there.
Yeah. Whenever I meet people who can't say ch, I always say yuch, and they can say yuch. Right?
It's funny,
so
man, with non-Yiddish words, I tend to say it with that, and I'm like, oh my God,
yeah.
It's like really.
It's a cultural thing. Your story is a beautiful story, Chaim. Shifra, let me reposition that question for you, okay? Talking about anti-Semitism, I asked Chaim, was there ever a moment when you felt as though this hatred is way too much? He said, no, it's never been that way. I know you somewhat. We've talked before. And I know your answer is no, there was never a moment, obviously. But why wasn't there?
Like during the conversion process, are you asking?
At any point in time, you didn't have to be a Jew. Why didn't you say, you know what, I'll be on the outside, I'll support the Jewish people, but the hatred is just way too much?
I'll be honest with you. I didn't think there would be that much hatred. I remember getting multiple outs throughout the whole process by my rabbi explaining, you're putting a target on your back and being like, I'm fine with that. I've always been the black sheep. It's fine. I had no idea the extent of it at that point, and this was pre-October 7th. And even he gave me another out, at the Beit Din, being like, are you sure you want to do this? Are you sure you want to put that target on your back? And I don't even think that my rabbi, with all respect to him, I don't think he could have predicted the level of anti-Semitism we would be experiencing post October 7th. And so I went from living a pretty normal life, having a decent social media presence, but not really getting a lot of, hate comments or anything like that, just the normal keyboard warriors, to getting death threats in my DMs every single day. And a lot of my friends do too, things like you'd look better in an oven or Hitler missed one, things like that every single day. And you're talking about any moments that you felt anti-Semitism, Chaim, in person before. And I immediately thought of, I was just wearing my Magen David. It was after October 7th. I didn't have my Israel necklace. I didn't have my hostage necklace at the time. Standing in a Home Goods and a woman coming up to me and pointing at my Magen David and calling me a baby killer and running away. And I'd never experienced anything like that before. And it never got to a point where it was too much, but I think it's just one of those things I'm just trying to grapple with. How do people get to that point? And how did we end up being the world's scapegoats? I think that's something that it's just a constant churning over. I don't know if there is an actual answer for that any of us could come up with in this conversation, but it's never stopped me from doing it. But now I know when the time came to, cross that threshold and put that target on my back after going into the mikveh, I didn't know. I didn't know. I had no idea.
Bezalel, in conclusion, one of the things that you dealt with and one of the things you talked about was the deep, deep suffering that you had gone through in life because of your career, because you're an idealist, because of the way you see the world. Now that you're a Jew, how do you deal with, how do you sort of hold in your arms the suffering that was there before, and now it's there again because you're still a nurse and you still see all that stuff? How does Judaism help you deal with the suffering?
Well, I mean, having, the structures of Judaism are tremendously helpful. I mean, they are essential. In my Christian experience, I never knew where I was supposed to be in the text. There is no structure to it. You're just making it up. You're just blindly turning the page and poking at it. You have to make up whatever path it is that you're going to take. And finding, when I found the Parsha system, I never have a question of where I'm supposed to be. I know where I'm at all times. And, that's the beauty of Judaism is the meaning is integrated at every level of life. And so,
were you at the sea when it split? Were you at Sinai when God gave the Torah?
Yeah, I think I was.
I saw you there.
Yeah, I saw you there. Yeah.
There you go. Folks, in conclusion, my final question for all of you is, there are going to be people who are listening to this podcast, to this interview, who have been wondering to themselves, maybe the road for me to go on is to investigate, research, study about Judaism, and perhaps that's where my soul lies. And then there are those people who are feeling that, thinking that, but they're reticent for some reason. Obviously, every journey is individual, as Bezalel said before. But those people who are really moving towards it and they want some encouragement, now that you've gone through it and they're going through it, what sort of encouragement would you give to somebody who is traveling down a very similar road to the one that you traveled down? Chaim.
I would just say, keep learning. You don't have to have all of the answers. If you feel this in your neshima and it feels right for you, you feel this pull, just go with that feeling. All you can do is learn and grow and understand more about yourself. You don't have to have all of the answers at the very beginning. Good
stuff. Shifra.
Yeah, I was going to say, because even after the conversion process, I still don't have all the answers, and I'm still working it out. But I just want to piggyback on that, is to trust your neshama, trust your soul, trust your gut instinct. That gut instinct that you have that we talk about, that's your neshama. Just follow it as far as you can to see where it takes you, and if it takes you home to Judaism, then that's where you belong. Just trust it and keep going.
Kol hakavod. Bezalel.
Be who you are.
Yeah.
Be who you are, no matter whatever that means. If that means you're a Jew, take the path, take the plunge, do it. you're not, be who you are. And the other thing I would say is you don't have to rush it. Fast is slow, and take your time and be intentional.
Slow is smooth, and smooth is fast.
Yeah.
Shifra, did you want to add to that?
I was just saying you take it slow and you don't have to go rush, but slow is smooth and smooth is fast.
Nice. Part B, in conclusion, it's like my mother. She never knew how to hang up. Zeigesind, God should watch over you, There's a sense that we all bring something to the Jewish people. Chaim, what are you bringing to the Jewish people?
What am I bringing to the Jewish people? Ooh, that's a hard question to answer. You really.
Yeah.
I mean, I have a lot of love to give, so I would like to think that I hope I'm bringing love to the Jewish people.
That's nice. Shifra.
Revival of the past, I suppose. If you follow me on social media, all I'm sharing is stuff from the Holocaust stories, human stories. So a little bit of revival.
What's the name of your podcast once again?
A Small Light, and it's available everywhere you listen to podcasts.
Wonderful. Bitzala, what do you bring to the Jewish people?
I think I have a deep passion for Judaism and Torah, and that I am able to inspire those that are around me.
Yes, you are. Yes, you are. Folks, I want to thank you very much for doing this. It's deeply, deeply inspiring to me. And I'm sure you've been told many, many times that, Chaim, as an example, couples come to our conversion class. And it's always the person who's converting that gives chizuk, that gives strength to the person who was born a Jew. And from my perspective, and I think many, many Jews feel this way, that what converts bring to Judaism is very, very palpable, and it's very strong. It's very powerful. Do you all have a sense of that? Do you know that?
Definitely, yeah.
Okay, great. You can't bring seafood and shellfish. You can't bring bacon, like Shifra talked about before, but you can bring a perspective on life that I don't have. And Judaism needs to grow. It's elastic, which is one of the things you discovered early on. And what you bring to Judaism adds to that elasticity. So kol hakavod to each one of you. Thank you so much for what you're doing and for how you're doing it, the great passion that you exude. It is very warming to me. And there's no question in my mind it'll be warming to people who listen to this podcast and who watch it. So thank you. Yesher koach, as they say in Yiddish. I want to conclude with a poem by AI, and you all know I've been doing this for a long time now, asking AI to produce poetry about my guests. This is not theory, not a debate, not an idea held at arm's length. This is the sound of the soul makes when it recognizes its own name, spoken in an ancient language. This is belonging. This is courage. This is the quiet, stubborn pull towards something older than memory and truer than fear. They did not come because it was easy. They did not come because it was safe. They came because something inside them whispered, home, before their mouths had the courage to say it aloud. Conversion is not a change of labels. It is a change of blood memory, a rerouting of the soul. It is choosing a people, a history heavy with tears and triumph, a destiny that does not promise comfort, but does promise meaning. And still, here they are. Chris found Judaism not in a sanctuary, Chaim, but in a chair, a mirror, a Shabbat table, in laughter, in warmth, in a kind of family his heart had been waiting for long before he knew its name. When the world grew louder with hate, he did not grow quieter. He put on his Magen David. He stood where it was uncomfortable to stand. He chose visibility over safety. He chose people over popularity. He chose destiny over distance. Bitzalo found Judaism in a hospital room, in final breaths, in the weight of watching people break. When meaning collapsed, Torah did not numb the pain. It gave him a way to hold it. It gave him a way to hold it. Not escape, rebuilding, not denial, purpose. A way to stand inside suffering without letting suffering be the final word. And Shifra, her soul before her theology. Her soul knew before her theology did. Her heart recognized her people before her lips knew how to say it. It in history, in memory, in a museum where grief became belonging, where strangers became my people. She did not abandon faith. She returned to it, to something older, deeper, more honest for her. She stitches Judaism into the world now with thread, with memory, with beauty, with sacred work. 3 lives, 3 doorways, 1 truth that refuses to be ignored. They did not find Judaism. Judaism found them. In a time when it is easier to walk away, they walk toward. In a moment when identity is thin, they chose covenant. In a world that asks for silence, they chose visibility. This is not a story about changing religions. This is a story about being claimed by a people. This is a story about souls that remembered who they were before the world told them who to be. This is not about conversion. This is about return. This is about choosing and being chosen.
Perfection.
Beautiful.
I always give you that pregnant pause there because I'm blown away by these poems. Isn't that something? Anyways, once again, folks, thank you so much. Yeshikoch, like they say. It was a pleasure to have each one of you, and I look forward to staying in touch, as I'm sure we will. And I thank you once again for contributing to the Jewish people and to the world that we all share in such a significant manner. Thank you so much, folks. Until we meet again, as my mother of blessed memory used to say, sei gesund. Anyone here knows what that means?
Mm-mm.
Go in good health. Sei gesund. You need to learn that. Okay. Thank you so much. Take care.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.